We are now going to look at the capital gains tax consequences that happens upon death. And this is discussed in section 9, capital H, capital A. We also will briefly look at section 25 that discusses the income tax implications. Okay, now guys, this is an important section. So, what I want you to understand, what we're going to be looking at now, is we are going to look at a person, a taxpayer. Right? And this taxpayer has all sorts of assets. 1, 2, 3, 4. This taxpayer passes away. All of these assets now something needs to happen with those assets. Okay, now what I want you to understand is, you get a deceased taxpayer. The moment, so you are a taxpayer, when you die, you become the deceased taxpayer. The moment that you die, you can't earn any more income, gross income and so forth. You've passed away. So what happens then is a new taxpayer gets created called the deceased estate. Now this is where the executor of your estate will be in charge. Now the executor has the responsibility to do what your will says. If you don't have a will, the executor needs to do what the law of interstate succession says. Now I don't want you to worry about it too much for now. But what I want you to understand is that when you die, in that situation, there are at least two taxpayers to consider. There's the deceased taxpayer to consider, and that is the taxpayer up until the date of death. And after that, there's a new taxpayer to consider, the deceased estate, where the executor is. Okay, now, all of these assets that the deceased taxpayer has needs to be under the control of the executor. The executor, so let me just make sure everybody's on the same page. The executor is a legal person that is appointed to distribute all of your assets, sell it or distribute it to people in terms of your will, and to pay all of your liabilities, settle all of your tax and so forth. Basically to conclude all of your affairs. Okay, now what this executor is going to do, your will is going to tell this person what to do mostly. Now, I'm not going to go into too much of the detail there for now, because that's not as important. But what I want you to understand is, so let's say you've got a house here, a car, some shares. In your will, it's now going to say, okay, I'm ignoring a spouse for now. Okay, a spouse is important. For now, just ignore quickly the spouse. What I want you to see is, all of these assets must immediately upon death be transferred from the deceased taxpayer to the deceased estate. Now what they do is they treat that movement there, that transfer there, as a disposal at market value. So in other words, when upon death, this taxpayer will have to calculate capital gains tax as if he or she disposed of all of their assets at market value to the deceased estate. Okay, so you'll calculate as normal. This deceased estate will now take these assets and give it to whoever you said should go to in your will. So you in your will might have said, the house, the car, and the shares must go to my son, for example. The executor will then transfer it to the son. Or what the executor will do, the executor will sell it. So for example, let's say the house is worth R1,000,000, the car is worth 500,000 rands, the shares are worth 200,000 rands. Okay, so that's 1.7 million rands. Let's say you owe creditors 400,000 rands, for example. This executor must pay that 400,000. So the executor will take some of your assets and sell it in order to raise the cash. Now they will just tell you in the question, the executor has sold it. Now if the executor sells it, it's a sale. So I want you to just, one more time, when you die, you've got assets. All of those assets are transferred to the deceased estate. That's a CGT calculation. Then the deceased estate, which is a new taxpayer, will do something with the assets, give it to beneficiaries, sell it to third parties, and there will be then further tax consequences there. So here it's basically summarized. So here's the taxpayer, the deceased taxpayer. Here's the deceased estate. So when the taxpayer dies, there's a deemed disposal at market value to the estate. Can you see it goes to the estate? This is the deceased estate. So the deceased estate is then treated as if they purchased it at market value from you. So that's the new base cost. Right? So let's say there was a house. The base cost is 2 mil. The market value on death is 3 mil. And in this house, assume it's on a prime residence. I just want to make it simple. So when this taxpayer dies, the taxpayer will say proceeds 3 mil, base cost 2 mil. So there will be 1 mil capital gain. Okay. Then the estate now has this asset. The estate is then treated as if they purchased the asset for 3 mil. So the base cost for the estate will be 3 mil. If this estate now sells it for, let's say, 3.5 mil, the proceeds will be 3.5 mil like that. So that 0.5 mil capital gain will be taxed in the deceased estate. So in other words, the taxpayer here gets taxed on the capital gain up until the date of death, because that's what you treated as if you sold it at market value. So in effect, that's what you'll be taxed on, up until the market value on the date of death. Everything that happens after that is taxed in the deceased estate. Now, like I've mentioned to you, this deceased estate can now give it to different people. So I'm going to go through it. The first one is, it can be transferred to a spouse. Now, if it is transferred to a spouse, guys, you've studied section 9HB. You basically apply those rules. It means there's no CGT. The spouse takes over all of the information. I'm not going to go further into that. You know how that works. Section 9HB. If the executor sells it, then the proceeds is the actual selling price, and the market value, the base cost, is the market value at the date of death, like we've said, because remember, it's treated as we purchased it. If it is transferred to a beneficiary, so you say in your will, this must go to my son, then the base cost is the market value at death, as is the proceeds. So there will be no capital gain if you transfer it to a beneficiary. Why is that the reason? Okay, so understand now what happens? Mr. A dies. He had an asset, asset 1. The base cost was $1 million. The market value at death is 1.3 million. Okay, it is distributed to son in terms of will. Takes 7 months to do it. The market value when son gets asset is 1.5. Okay, so here we go. So let's quickly go through it again. Mr. A dies. He has an asset with a base cost of R1 million. The market value on the date of death is 1.3 million. It was distributed to his son in terms of a will. It takes 7 months to do so. So by the time his son gets it, the asset has a market value of 1.5. Okay, so the deceased taxpayer, Mr. A, will have this calculation. So we're now looking at this part. The taxpayer sells to the estate. So it will have proceeds, which is the market value at death. Base cost, which is the base cost for this asset. Right, so 300,000 rands is the capital gain. Then we have the deceased estate. Now the deceased estate, the first thing that you need to see is that you must fill in the base cost. And that is 1.3 million rands, which is the market value on the date of death. because the deceased estate is treated as if it purchased it at market value. So understand again, Mr. A is treated as if he sold it for 1.3 million rands to the deceased estate. So the deceased estate is treated as if they bought it for 1.3 million rands. The proceeds, if you now give it to the son like we do here, is equal to the base cost. So the proceeds just also becomes 1.3, so there's no capital gain. Now I want you to see, if it didn't go to the son like this, but the deceased estate sold it, then you would have, for proceeds here, used 1.5 million rands, and there would have been a 200,000 rands capital gain. Right, so guys, you apply these rules just as it says here. So here it is just in the act. Right. Okay guys, some of the wording here might have changed a little bit. For you it's just one or two words, but this is it's just clarifications, so just check. But basically what I want you to see is the deceased person is treated as having disposed of an asset at the date of the person's death for its market value. Okay, they just say other than as is disposed of to a spouse. Okay, the rest of these, if you sell things like pension preservation and so forth, there's no capital gains tax on that. So that's what I just want you to see up to there. Section 9HA2 then says, the deceased person must, if his or her surviving spouse is a resident, be treated as having disposed of an asset to that spouse for an amount received or accrued to the expenditure incurred by that person that was allowed in terms of Section 11A or Section 22, or for the base cost of that asset. That's more important. So in other words, when you give an asset to your spouse, you are treated as if you sold it to your asset for the same amount as the base cost. If it's a capital asset, if it's trading stock, for the same amount as the deduction. What I want you to see here, guys, in other words, is it works similar to Section 9HB. You could also say, in a calculation question, if it says like this, Mr. A dies, he leaves his house to spouse, market value 1 mil, base cost, ignore the fact that it's a primary residence, guys, this is a flat, let's just say, leaves his asset, let's just call it asset, base cost 300,000. You could just in your solution write transfer to spouse, no CGT. Right. If you had to show the calculation, you need to see that they tell you here that if it's a capital asset, the base cost of the asset, or it's treated as if it was sold for the base cost of the asset. So what's the base cost of this asset? 300,000. So the proceeds must then also be 300,000. Okay, so it becomes null. It's perfectly fine to just write transfer to spouse, no CGT. That's what I would actually recommend. Section 9HA, if any asset that is treated as having been disposed of by a deceased person is transferred directly to an heir or a legatee, that heir or legatee must be treated as having acquired that asset for an amount equal to the market value as of the date of that person's death. Remember what I said to you over here, guys? If it's transferred to a beneficiary, right, the beneficiary heir, the base cost, the proceeds is equal to the market value on the date of death, right, as is the base cost. This is just where it tells us that in the Act. Right, must be treated as it was acquired for that. So the base cost is the market value. Right, and it's sold at market value. So that summary slide there, guys, is all that you need. Then section 25, this is a section that deals with income, not capital, your assets, the income that you receive after death. So for example, if you pass away and you had money in the bank account, after your death, that money will still earn interest. That interest must be taxed, but you've passed away. So how does it get taxed? Who gets taxed on it? So section 25 says that if you pass away the amount will be taxed in your deceased estate. So, if it would have been included in your taxable income, it will be included in your deceased estate. Your deceased estate is then treated as if it's a natural person taxpayer. So it gets all of the, it's treated as a normal individual, but it does not get any Section 6 rebates. Those are your primary, secondary, and tertiary rebates, or Section 6A or Section 6B medical credit rebates, which is something you'll study separately under individuals. And please also note, guys, Section 10(1)I is the interest exemption. Now that section doesn't say deceased estates are excluded, but the common practice is that it will not be available to them. So you're treated as an individual or as a natural person, but you don't get these things that natural persons do. So here's Section 25. It says, any income received by or accrued to or in favor of any person in his capacity as an executor of an estate, and an amount received which would have been income in the hands of the deceased person must be treated as income in the deceased estate. Remember, the executor is now the legal person looking after your estate. That's why they say if he receives anything, it will be included in the deceased estate. Where the deceased estate, if a person acquires an asset, right? If that asset is an asset other than one that goes contemplated Section 9H2, it must be treated as having been acquired for an amount equal to the market value. Where the deceased estate of a person disposes of an asset to an heir or legatee, that deceased estate must be treated as having disposed of that asset for an amount equal to the amount of expenditure incurred by the deceased estate, and the heir or legatee must be treated as having acquired the asset for an amount equal to the deceased estate. Now, that section which you're seeing there is what they're also describing over here, the bottom, where I said the estate is treated as if they acquired this asset for market value, and when it goes to a beneficiary, so the base cost is the market value because that's what they were treated as buying it for, the proceeds must also be equal to the market value. So, what is the amount that the estate spent? The market value. What are they treated as selling it at? The market value. So just to show you in that section we just looked at, they say here, the deceased estate must be treated as having disposed of it for an amount equal to the amount that they've incurred. How much did they incur, guys? They incurred the market value. So that's why this rule here says equal to the market value at death. Section 25(4). This subsection must be applied in respect of an asset acquired by a surviving spouse. Right, for the purpose of determining any allowance. The surviving spouse must be treated as one and the same person in respect to the date of the acquisition of that asset and any valuation affected by that asset and any amount of expenditure incurred, the manner in which it has been used, and any allowance which is deductible. So basically what they're saying here, guys, at the bottom, this whole section, so it works in similar to Section 9HB. They say if the spouse receives an asset, all of the information that belonged to the original person, so here is Mr. A, he or Mr. X, the asset goes to Mrs. X, his wife, when he dies. So all of the assets that belong to him must be transferred to Mrs. X. That is what Section 25(4) says. And that rule which I said to you, the deceased estate is treated as a natural person, but certain sections they don't get. This rule over here, the summary. Here you see it in the act. The deceased estate must, other for the purposes of Section 6, Section 6A and 6B, be treated as if that estate were a natural person. And if the deceased estate was a resident at the time of his death, it must be treated as a resident. So there you can see, guys, they say, the purpose of Section 6, 6A and 6B, they say you're treated as a natural person, other than, so for these sections, is not available. Because they say other than those sections. So you're treated as a natural person for all sections other than these sections, if you're a deceased estate.